You please rise. Welcome to yet another Monday edition of Downtown Rotary, November 29th. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask that you remain standing while Jason Herbolt comes forward to share an invocation.
Thank you, President Tony. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for bringing us together today. The subject of education is something that will resonate with all of us. We are all the product of education. We are all the product of leaders before us who spent a great deal of time, energy, and resources, both in time and treasure, to develop the curriculum, to develop the vision that we benefit from today. Our children need us now more than ever. The world is evolving at a rapid pace, and the task in front of our educators and those that administer our education system is not getting less complicated. Please be with them, give them wisdom, give them the direction to guide it in the path that will not only keep us competitive, but will enrich the lives of those young people that will benefit from it. Bless this food to our bodies. Amen.
All right, you may be seated. Well, welcome. I want to thank our greeters, and would like to recognize we have some guests amongst us, and Tommy's got the mic. We're going to go ahead and introduce our guests. First, starting with Nick Katsaya. Over on this side, Tommy, we're going to make you run here on a Monday after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Cool. There's really no specific reason. Focus. Right.
Can you hear me? Okay, there we go.
We got you now.
I have two guests with me today. Laura McNaughton from the University of South Dakota, Chief of Staff to President Gestring, and Chris Casson, who does external affairs and fundraising with the foundation.
Excellent. Welcome, Chris and Laura. Thank you, Nick. Rich Nazer, you have a guest.
President Tony, fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce Clark Hagan, who's the General Manager for McGough Construction in Sioux Falls. Clark recently relocated to Sioux Falls not only for a career opportunity, but relocated from Fargo for the weather and the rolling terrain. So he's very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Welcome, Clark, not only to Downtown Rotary, but to Sioux Falls. Olivia Essig, you have a guest.
Thank you. I have Annie Wold. She's with me at Sioux Empire United Way. She's our campaign and marketing associate, and she handles just about a little bit of everything for us. So I'm glad that she was able to make it today.
Thank you, Olivia, and welcome, Annie. You two have been busy, so we appreciate you taking time out to be here today. Matt Paulson, you have a guest.
Good morning, President Tony and fellow Rotarians. I have two guests today. My first guest is Tasha Smith with Sanford Health. She is their Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. My second guest is Sarah Lum, and she is the Program Manager at Startup Sioux Falls. So please welcome Tasha and Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome, Tasha and Sarah. Eric Erickson, you have a guest.
Good morning, President Tony, fellow Rotarians. This morning I have Jake Mortensen with us. He's originally from Fort Pierre, now lives in Sioux Falls. He's an economist with the Joint Committee on Taxation for Congress. So please welcome Jake.
Thank you, Eric. Welcome, Jake. We also have three junior Rotarians with us this month for their fifth and final program And those three are David Jones from Jefferson, Alex Rather from Lincoln, and Emma Korn from Sioux Falls Christian. Please join me in welcome our junior Rotarians. Excellent. Couple upcoming events here in December that we'll want you to RSVP for. One is Rotary in the Know, December 7th, 4 p.m. at the Premier Playhouse, a behind-the-scenes look at what is happening there at the Premier Playhouse. And then December 20th, we're going to have our holiday celebration. Your spouses are invited. Please RSVP so we can prepare accordingly. We are also in the home stretch of our membership month. Each one bring one, and we have till the end of the day tomorrow where we're waiving the $100 onboarding fee, and we've had great response. We continue to add leaders within our community to help build a stronger club, so I want to say thank you for that. We're not done. You still have about 36 hours. Get those applications in to Angie, to Laura, and we'll look forward to welcoming new members to our club. And we're going to do that right now. We have 2 inductions here today. I am first going to ask Laura Mitchell to come forward, and she's going to introduce Dr. Sarah Cole.
Thank you, President Tony. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Sarah Cole. We were introduced from a mutual friend and got to know each other over the past couple of months. She's a physician at Avera and has been building her career here in Sioux Falls and getting her family up and running, and is now interested in kind of expanding her wings in the community and getting more involved here, and Rotary is a great place for her to do that, so we're excited to have her join in the club. So I will let her tell a little bit more about her background. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, President Tony and Laura, for your kind introduction. I'm originally from Moorhead, Minnesota, so right across the river from Fargo. I graduated from the University of North Dakota Medical School, and I matched into a residency program here in Sioux Falls at Sanford Hospital. Started a residency as a single mom with a 3-week-old and 18-month-old, so it was really an experience. I don't know if I would have made it through if it weren't been for God's grace and a lot of Diet Coke. So towards the end of my residency, I decided that I wanted to go further on and subspecialize. So I moved my family to Milwaukee for 3 years for further education, and I subspecialize in pediatric gastroenterology, hepatology, and nutrition. If you don't know what that is, basically you call me if your child or grandchild has swallowed a magnet or has feeding difficulty or problems with constipation, just to name a few things of what I do. I really, after living in Milwaukee, I really wanted smaller town living. I loved it here in Sioux Falls, and I lived here for 3 years. So I ended up moving my family back here in 2018 and established my practice at Avera here in town. And my kids are now 9 and 11, and they attend Sioux Falls Christian. So really my desire to become a Rotarian member, it's just an honor to be accepted. It's just wanting to become more involved in the community and really give back. I mean, I feel personally that I've been so blessed living here and have been given so many opportunities, and it's been such a safe community, and I plan on staying here. And so really I love that the Rotary Club offers so many opportunities to become involved and give back to the community. I will be applying for city council, and election is up here in April. So again, another way that I'd like to give back, and really wanting to surround myself with other business leaders and being mentored and learning from the best of the best here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome, Dr. Cole. Next, I'm going to ask Jim Schmidt to come forward. And Jim is not here. All right, we are going to ad lib. Our next guest can tell his own story. Our next inductee can tell his own story, and has been coming to Rotary for some time, so knows the drill. I'm going to ask Hugo Barron to come forward. And Hugo just took over the head role at South Dakota Housing, but I'm going to have him share more about his story and his vision as we move forward in one area that we are all looking at in terms of housing and what our community can do to meet the needs. So with that, Hugo, welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, that was a good title, but it's the Swim Power Housing Partnership. I'm not planning on taking over South Dakota Housing yet, but I'm working towards there someday. Anyway, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with the Rotary of Sioux Falls downtown. I've learned so much because this is like my third time coming here. And so little by little, I've been understanding more about the role of Rotarian, and it's amazing. I mean, obviously I Googled some more, right, to try to see the extent of it, and it's amazing. I look forward to being a member, an active member. Originally from Mexico, just so I tell you a little bit about myself, I migrated to the United States at age 13. In 1989, lived in the Midwest since then, and I joined the Swim Power Housing Partnership about 3 years ago as an education specialist for the first-time homebuyer education program. And I had the best mentor, Mr. Jim Schmidt. Now I know he couldn't make it here, but he's been a great part of my profession as well as what I become. And on October 7th, I became the president of the Swim Power Housing Partnership. I look forward to sharing with you what our role is here in the community. And as being part of Rotarian, I plan to share with you our mission, which is basically to inspire the American dream of homeownership to everyone in the Swim Power, as well as providing opportunities for them and families to become homeowners. So if anybody here doesn't have a house yet, talk to me before you leave. And I'll tell you what, and believe it or not, it's still, people ask me sometimes if this is a good time to buy. I'm like, it's not as good as it was last year, but it's better than what it looks like it will be. So get yourself hooked right now. So I look forward to meeting you all, working with you, and making a difference in this community as well. So thank you.
Welcome, Hugo, and thank you for correcting me. We're going to go ahead and take a photo, and while we do, we're going to ask our panelists and Cindy Peterson to come forward. All right, once again, welcome Dr. Cole and Hugo Barron. Now we're going to turn our attention to our panel. As you likely saw when we had put this together, we had Dr. Maher planning to be here. Unfortunately became ill, was not able to, but we have a fantastic panel, and Tim Rave is joining us. Tim is the president and CEO of South Dakota Association of Healthcare Organizations. He served in both chambers of South Dakota Legislature, first in the House of Representatives from 2003 to 2011, where he became Speaker of the House, and then later in the Senate from 11 to 15, where he was Majority Leader. Rave attended South Dakota State University and graduated from the University of Sioux Falls. He was appointed by Governor Noem in 2021 to the Board of Regents, where his term will expire in 2027. Please join me in welcoming Tim Rave. Tim, thank you for being with us here today. Also, on your far right, my left, Tony Venhuizen, a very, very proud Armor native. We share the hometown. He is a graduate of South Dakota State University and the University of South Dakota Law. Previously served as the Board of Regents student member from 2003 to 2008, appointed 3 times by Governor Mike Rounds. He also served Chief of Staff under Kristi Noem and Dennis Dugard. Was appointed to the Regents by Governor Noem in April of 21. His term will expire the same time as Tim's. Welcome, Tony Venhuizen. Thanks for being here. With that, I'll turn it over to Cindy for a conversation on the Board of Regents. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you both for being here today. Great to see everyone at Rotary. What a wonderful Monday. What a beautiful day to talk about education. It's my style to kind of set the tone, ensure the room has at least a baseline of knowledge before I jump into questions. So in that spirit, Tony, we're going to start right with you. What is the Board of Regents? What is its purpose?
Right, well, that's pretty simple. The Board of Regents is the governing board for the state's 6 universities. It's a 9-member board. It's created in the state constitution, so we've had that since we were a state in 1889. 9 members appointed by the governor, 8 of them to 6-year terms, including Tim and I, staggered 6-year terms. The 9th member is a university student, and Tony mentioned I did that when I was a student, so that's a 2-year term. It's a shorter term. And we oversee the 6 state universities, SDSU, USD, Dakota State, Northern State, School of Mines, and Black Hill State, as well as the 2 special schools, the School for the Blind and the School for the Deaf, which is here in Sioux Falls.
Dr. Brian Maher, which we know is unable to be here and join us today, he serves as the executive director and the CEO. Tim, you and Tony are on the Board of Regents. What are Dr. Maher's primary responsibilities, and as a regent, what is your role?
Well, thanks, Cindy, for having me. I'm looking forward to being here for many weeks now, anticipating being here. For those of you that don't know, I found out at 9 o'clock this morning that I was coming. So I put on my best blue jeans and showed up.
8:20.
Fair. So, no, thanks for being here. So Dr. Maher, really, if you think of his role as he's the boss of kind of the universities, if you will. So the presidents all report up through Dr. Maher, and he runs the day-to-day operations of the regental system as we know it. So he has multiple staff, from legal counsel to support staff to academic support staff, et cetera, and they run the day-to-day operations on a global scale for the universities, provides support services to each university, and we try to centralize, and that effort's been going on for many years, to try and centralize some of the bookkeeping and some of the academic tracking and many of those functions to try and bring some efficiency to the regental system. That's where that is housed. And our role as regents really is to help make those broad guiding decisions, kind of the vision for the regental system going forward. Again, my vast experience of I've been on there for 5 months now, so, but no, it really is our job to help drive the vision for the entire regental system for the state.
Having such oversight and influence on our state's major higher education institutions, I would say puts a bit of a microscope on the decisions this group makes. Let's talk about a few of those that have been made by the regents as of late. At the direction of the state legislature, the Board of Regents submitted a report to the governor in October of findings from a task force that studied operations and functions of South Dakota's public university system. Tony, what was the outcome or outcomes of that study? What did the Board of Regents learn?
Yeah, thank you. So that was, we call that the Senate Bill 55 study. It was 2 years ago. The state legislature passed Senate Bill 55, which required this study to be done. That was a couple months before Dr. Maher came on as executive director, which was, maybe June of a year ago. But he really took the bull by the horns and made it into a big success. They had a very large task force, 3 subgroups, came back with I think, 35 recommendations for how we can be more efficient, how we can use taxpayer money and the tuition money in the best way possible. Some of them are very tangible things. For example, we had both USD and SDSU offering competing nursing programs in Rapid City, satellite programs. And the agreement was made that USD would, over the next couple of years, transition out, and that SDSU will just do all the nursing in Rapid City. That was something that was recommended, and that change has already been made. Some of them are in process. You know, we have 6 universities who each contract separately for food service. I think it is true that they each contract with the same company for food service. I think that's right. So one question was, why don't you have one contract with this company? Certainly you'd get a better deal than 6 separate ones. Well, we're in the process now of finding out if that's actually true. Some of them are a little more amorphous, try to avoid duplication of programs. Well, what does that mean? You know, if SDSU came in and wanted to open a law school, we'd probably tell them, no, we don't need a second law school. But on the other hand, education school, training teachers, I think 5 of the 6 schools have that, and we clearly need that. We don't need, we'd have a problem if you could only go to one school to become a teacher. So a lot of these are judgment calls, but there are any number of these, and again, I'm not going to, I couldn't recite all 35, and you don't want me to. But it's a lot of things like that that are aimed at just making sure that we are spending as efficiently as we can. Tim mentioned, and it goes back a long way, when I joined the Regents as the student member 18 years ago, they were just in the process of going from from 6 finance systems to 1, 6 HR systems to 1, 6 student databases to 1, 6 transcripts to 1. Some of that has been done over the last 20 years, but there's still a lot of that that's left to do, and that's what we're doing.
Tim, anything in the report that maybe surprised you?
I don't know that anything surprised me necessarily, Cindy, but I do think that just even since April, we've been talking about it, and I do think that the interesting thing that I've taken away from that is everyone really took that report to heart. I think there was a lot of grousing about it when it was first passed, not the report, the bill. When the bill was first passed, I think there was some consternation about what that would look like down the road. And I have heard nothing but positive feedback from folks that have been involved in that process looking forward. And I really think without the force of the legislature, you will see this continued focus on efficiencies, finding better ways to do things, finding cheaper ways to do things. And I think that will lead in some of the discussions we'll have later about student enrollment, et cetera. But I think that has really generated a lot of really positive feedback from the report. And that although the process was grinding, I think there's a lot of really good things that are going to come out of that.
So you both feel the report was well done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the whole process was really well done, honestly.
How will it be a tool for legislators and policymakers in the coming session, in the coming years? Either of you want to jump in on that?
I think Tony summed it up already. I mean, I think it's kind of a guiding document going forward. There's some pillars, if you will. That's probably not the right word, but as we look at, because every meeting people bring in, hey, let's add this program or this degree or whatever. It's really, I think, just for me at a regental level, help me already focus. Like, do we really need that? Or to Tony's point, well, you can't just have English 101 at SDSU and everybody else has got to figure it out. So, I mean, it's a simplified example, but I think it's going to be helpful going forward.
Tony, how do you see it being used in the coming years?
Well, one comment I would make, that's all true. One comment I would make, some of the legislators who brought this forward, and I'll use his name because I don't think he would care, Ryan Maher from Timber Lake, or Isabel, I don't think he's voted for one Regents bill in the 15 years he's been in the legislature.
One.
He brought this forward, they put him on the task force last year. Now all of a sudden he's decided that maybe we're not as bad as he thought. But I think being involved in the process, you can get more buy-in and you can see, oh, they are doing some of this and they are listening to us, and you kind of build the team a little bit. And I think that was a real value add that and Dr. Maher deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. No relation to Ryan, but
No.
I do think to Tony's point, and I was thinking about this when he was talking about the Senate bill, that I think a lot of legislators that were an anti-higher education is too strong of a term, but I think it was lack of understanding of what the role that the higher regental system plays in the state, the workforce, and et cetera. So if it did nothing else, the people that were naysayers before are like, they're doing a lot of really good things there. Now, some things they could do better, but they're doing a lot of really good things.
So just an overall level of education or awareness or
Absolutely.
understanding.
Awareness is probably the better, yeah, absolutely.
So just in my own curiosity then, and either of you can jump in, how will, because it sounds like a lot of those things might be less tangible, they might be happening not necessarily behind the scenes, but how will they affect the day-to-day, or how will any of us in this room see the positive impact of outcomes from the report?
Going back to Senator Maher, he and I have already had discussions about a proposed budget item that we're looking at from a regental level. We just had a off the sidebar discussion, and he's really excited about an potential investment of state dollars to help facilitate growth in a program. And I think, to your point, you will see tangible results down the road about increased people being excited about going to school and about graduation rates, and in particular target high need areas. So I think it's already had an impact. If it does nothing else this year, it's going to have a great impact. I don't think that's the case. I think going forward, it will have a huge impact.
Anything else jump out at you, Tony, that you haven't shared?
I would just add, we went around and did kind of town hall meetings at the 6 campuses about this, and I went to 2 or 3 of those. I didn't go to all 6. But one thing that you will not see and that we don't want to see is there's a fear that the schools lose their identity, or that, we don't have our own president anymore, and that's not the idea. A lot of these things that we're changing are really back office functions. Mm-hmm. If you're a university student, you don't care how the payroll system works. And it's about saving money and hopefully having lower tuition and either asking less of the state or being able to do more with what we get.
Of all the things I've observed coming out of the Board of Regents in the past year, the Opportunity Center seems to have drawn the most attention. Tim, I'm going to bring this and start with you. What are Opportunity Centers replacing, or perhaps a better way to ask the question, what issue are Opportunity Centers intended to solve?
Well, I don't think it's a secret that there's been some angst about from the legislators, legislative perspective, some legislators, about the use of the word diversity centers. And I think maybe even goes back to my previous comment about, well, one, I think part of that is there's just not a full appreciation of what a diversity center was, is, will be. So to really address that concern, we came up, and I'll really give Regent Jeff Partridge from Rapid City credit for this concept. It evolved as a whole regental body, but the opportunity centers have grown from that. And I think this, again, much like Senate Bill 55, there was quite a bit of angst about making changes to the diversity centers from each of the universities at different levels and for different reasons. One thing I have witnessed just since April when we started this process is watching, I believe, the presidents and their support staff kind of embrace the opportunity centers as a really positive thing. And I'll give you one example. I think up at SDSU, they're looking at making kind of an area designated for all support for everyone. Support for veterans, support for, go down the list. Every student group that needs support in some way will be co-located in one location. And instead of having a separate diversity office off to the side that a few people could go to, this will bring an area that people can mingle and interact, support each other as students, as support staff in a ring. And I really would say that they were very excited after they dove into this, kind of rolled up their sleeves and said, okay, now these guys are making us do this. Once they did it, they were very excited about the opportunities that I think the Opportunity Center will bring for them. It's nice how I slipped that in there twice.
I like that.
And so, no, I think there's a lot of really good things that are going to come from it, and I think we're really just on the front end of doing that.
So, if I might, Tim, what was the issue that the Opportunity Center was intended to solve? What was the conversation that led to needing to consider an Opportunity Center concept?
I just think the short answer, Cindy, is that it's diversity centers were getting, I don't think there was a full appreciation of what a diversity center did. I think there was some preconceived notions, specifically from some legislative folks that didn't really comprehend exactly what a diversity center was or did. And I think to avoid some problems legislatively, we addressed it offensively instead of defensively, and I think that's really the short answer.
I love it.
Well, can I add to that?
Please.
The other thing that became apparent as we looked into it is that everything on the campuses was very siloed. And so you have the veteran office, and then in the next building you have the Native American office, and then you have the first generation college student office. And so if you're a student and you need help, first of all, you got to figure out who you are and where you're supposed to be. And then you have the counseling center and the tutoring center and the student, and they're all separate too. And what you really want, and what we're going to have now, is if you're needing help, you can go to this place and they'll connect you with the right thing. And so maybe you need a tutor, maybe you need a counselor, maybe you need to join the Frisbee golf team, whatever you need to get you connected with campus and get you successful, that's what they'll do. It's a one-stop shop.
So whether it was just people's comfort with change, lack of awareness, the Opportunity Center in some ways was a bit controversial when the concept came forward.
Right.
Walk this room through both sides of that conversation, both sides of the Opportunity Center conversation, as best you can. Yeah.
I think, first of all, whenever you change anything at a university, there's always a lot of fear. You have a lot of people, a lot of different perspectives. You're always kind of steering a battleship, and that's something that you have to work through. And there are always people on a university campus who don't really feel that there should be a Board of Regents. The reason that the Board of Regents exists is to take blame from every other place involved. So the governor can blame us, the president can blame us. It comes from every side. That's why we have 6-year terms. But it's true. The fear from the university campus was that this was some kind of an attempt to diminish diversity efforts. And that's not really true. We're not getting rid of any services here. What we're doing is breaking down the silos and consolidating these services into a more all-encompassing umbrella. But I think a lot of the fear was, you're not going to provide services to diverse populations anymore. No, we are. And as they've worked through that, I think the reaction has gotten better. But a lot of fear and just a lot of, maybe that's our fault in part that it's not explained as well as it should be. But I think Tim said this, and it's true, that our university presidents are the ones who have to be on campus and really making these things work. And they've, so far, I think, done a very nice job of that.
Well, I appreciate the extra awareness. Did you want to add something?
Well, I would only say that I think the word that we really came up with when we were kind of brainstorming this was opportunities for all students, not just a select group of students who may use a select center. And that's really where the Opportunity Centers concept came up with, that we want all students to succeed, and whatever support any one of them might need, they can have it and know that it's there. And I think that was really Regent Partridge's kind of the genesis of his idea. So.
Well, I certainly appreciate the extra clarification and a little bit into the process of coming to the decision. Hopefully others in the room did as well.
Well, you kept pushing, so we had to be clear, apparently. So we took the hint after 3 times.
My own curiosity added. I wanted to know more. Well, Tony, you mentioned how much everyone loves the Board of Regents. Shed a little light on the appointment process in general. It's, again, a fairly high-profile, extremely influential group. It just is, all determined by appointment. So either of you can jump in, tag team it. Who decides Board of Regent appointments? How are individuals identified, deemed qualified, ultimately selected?
Sure. So state law says that regents have to be members of the leading citizens of the state with demonstrated wisdom and probity. That's in state law, not strictly enforced.
That's kind of a gray
area. And so,
that's a gray area.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the qualification.
My panelists, what have I done?
Right. You have to be, you can't have more than 6 of the same political party, and you can't have more than 1 from a given county. So Tim and I, fortunately, I live in Lincoln County and he lives in Minnehaha County, and that's how we can both be here. But they're selected by the governor. You know, when I was in the governor's office, I worked on board appointments, and I don't even know how many boards the governor fills. 300? I mean, it make thousands of appointments. There are probably only half a dozen or so where people actually call you and want to be on it. And the Game Fish and Parks Commission would be the when the openings are coming for their county, or if they want to advance the interests of a particular school. But these, as I said, they're 6-year terms, and so a governor only gets maybe 1 or 2 appointments a year. You know, it was this year Governor Noem got 3 appointments in April at the same time, but as of now, there are 5 who she's appointed and 4 who were still appointed by Governor Dugard. And so change comes a little slower. When you have a new governor, you don't have 9 new regents right away. It's a little more gradual. And then they're confirmed by the Senate, although that's not generally an issue, but we'll see.
Yep. Yeah, we haven't got through the
Yeah,
session yet
we
this
haven't
year,
done that yet,
so-
so, yeah.
You only get confirmed once by the Senate, so if we get through January, February, we should be all right, but.
Right.
Well, I see a lot of wisdom between the two of you, so I think it'll all go well for you both.
When Dr. Maher didn't come, the bar came down a long way, so.
Data is a big part of higher education, and honestly, a lot of probably how we spend many of our days. For the last 4 years, there has been declining enrollment collectively among the institutions. Tim, what conversations does this reality spark at meetings, behind closed doors, out with the other university leadership? Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, obviously it's always a concern. Your goal is to get students enrolled into higher education. I think really one of our shining spots right now is the Western Health Science Center that's going to be renamed in Rapid City, and it's really going to hyper focus on healthcare, probably specifically nursing, but we're going to double the size of that program. Now, that's semantics at some level. You say we're going to double the size of the program. Well, first of all, you have to get the students in the door and get them in the program and help them be successful. And so doubling is not as easy as it sounds, just saying we're going to double. That involves advertising and some recruiting from schools, et cetera, et cetera. So I would tell you it's a focus of the regents right now. And I just think it's always something that you're always going to fight. And I don't think that fight's going to get any easier going forward. I mean, we have SDSU and USD, and they're, it's sometimes easier to recruit there than some of the other schools, but, it depends on the program and the need, and so.
Well, we see, you have to look at the high school, how many high school graduates do you have in the state? And that has gradually gone down over time. It's come up a little bit, but now it's going back down again. That's where we recruit from. That's true throughout the Midwest. If you talk to Barry Dunn, he's very concerned about this at SDSU because Minnesota's seeing the same thing, Iowa, North Dakota, Nebraska. So you can say, well, let's go, recruit in other states. That's fine. They're all doing the same thing to us. The other thing that's true is you look at the high school population that we have in South Dakota and where there is the growth, and it is in the populations that historically have been less likely to go to college. And so you go back to the Opportunity Center concept, and why is it that we need to promote this? There's growth on the reservations. There's growth here in Sioux Falls with recent immigrants, people who don't speak English as their first language, people who no one in their family has gone to college. That's where a lot of the growth is in our high school population, and we have to get better at getting those people into college if we want to keep our enrollments up.
Well, and I think one of those conversations that turned to action, and from my lens and what I saw of it, I would call it pretty cool, that happened during the last legislative session, which is the Freedom Scholarship. Mm-hmm. Tony, talk about the Freedom Scholarship's origin and how it got across the finish line.
Well, the origin really started with the guys in the back there, Dana Dykehouse and Dave Rosenboom, and of course Danny Samford, coming in with their premier scholarship and saying we're going to South Dakota was really the only state in the country that didn't offer a significant needs-based scholarship statewide. And they stepped up with a major donation and said that they were going to make this happen, and then came to Governor Noem and said, here's what we're doing, what are you going to do? And so that was just about a year ago at this time, I think. And she stepped up and said, well, let's go to the legislature when we have this unusual year of one-time money and see if we can't put in $50 million. And so that was her proposal, and went to the legislature and had a lot of support. Kent Peterson, of course, was key to getting that done, and among others, and passed with just a few detractors, not many. And the good thing is that's 100 plus 50, and then the Avera and Sanford have stepped up, and we're going to be pretty quick up to $200 million endowment to do needs-based scholarships in this state, which is huge, particularly in regard to my last answer about the kind of kids we need getting into college and what the barriers are. It's going to make all the difference.
Well, and maybe that's leading into that. From both of your perspectives, how does this kind of financial resources fit into any of the Board of Regent objectives, particularly with enrollment?
Well, I think Tony already said it. It's going to help break that barrier down for those kids, especially, I think of the nursing program again out in West River that's going to double in size. And I think the way to get those folks or those kids in the door is to knock down the barrier of cost. Then, it's just a matter of recruiting, making sure that's a career they want, et cetera. We do that, you're going to extrapolate that out to every program, frankly, and I think it's going to be invaluable, honestly. It's embarrassing that we were the last state to have a needs-based scholarship, and it's embarrassing that people voted against it, but I think it's good for everyone in the room to know that who would vote against that, that kind of investment in our youth. And so,
If you do want to know, Dana carries the list with him, I think.
Let's get the microphone back.
Right.
Please continue.
So that's my pitch for getting involved in the legislative process, because those kinds of things just shouldn't happen. I get it if someone's opposed to, I don't know, some new building or something, I guess, whatever, you can have opposition to spending money on that, but a needs-based scholarship that's fully funded and we're having a fist fight over it, it's crazy. But anyway, I'm off my pedestal now, so.
Well, we'll put you back on.
Okay.
How is this going to be a solution and part of responding to the Board of Regent objectives? How is this going to be a solution for enrollment?
Well, I think we've already kind of covered that, but I think if you can add that to your toolbox of advertising to say, you know what, Ryan Budmeyer, we can help you get into school. I mean, it would be the first time he went. We can get you into school and take away that barrier of cost. If that was the only thing holding you back, I think that's going to open the door for a lot of students. I really do. I mean, I think that is our objective for filling programs, and it's a key component.
Well, and the other thing is the design of the program, and this was something that the donors insisted on, was that the money goes to the university foundation at each university, and then is really very flexible as to how they deploy it. So you can have the kid sitting in front of you, you can say, okay, well, we have this scholarship here, and we have, here's where you need help, so we're going to take this. It's a very flexible tool to fill in the gap for each kid as they need it. It's not a lot of criteria. There's not real specific criteria, I should say.
Switching to another interesting activity is the recent hire of Jim Abbott at the Discovery District. Mm-hmm. Tony, what's going on there?
Well, the Discovery District is the research park out at the University Center land on the northwest corner of town. And it has been an effort over 10, 15 years. There's also a research park at SDSU. Those things are just hard to get going and hard to keep going. Really, one of the first people to talk about developing something like that in South Dakota was Jim Abbott when he was running for governor in 2002, so it only seemed fair to make him come back to get it done. At this point, the Discovery District is operated by USD. It has a separate board of directors, so it's really Sheila Gestring who made that decision along with the board. But Jim thinks that this is a temporary job, but then he's not taking a salary, and it's like, why would we look for another, And I've said to him, you're better than anybody else and you're free. And so so we'll see. But
I think I would only add it, I think it's going to be good to have Jim there at the helm to kind of help direct this thing. And Tony and I had the opportunity to go down to Lincoln, Nebraska, and look at their research park a few months ago. And, I think the one thing I learned, because I knew nothing about a research district, I remember I helped vote to get the money to start it, and I kind of forgot about it after that. And then in April, it became my problem again. So, but I think my takeaway, and Tony can jump in here, but I think on a research park, looking at, you're thinking about Lincoln, Nebraska at U of N, and they have about the same amount of buildings we have. They have one more building on their campus than we do. Now, theirs are bigger physically, all 4 of them, but they have things that we don't have, and one of them being some infrastructure. So think restaurants, little bistros, maybe a little local pub they have, all on that research park campus. And they're building a motel as we were there. In fact, we're just getting close to finishing it. I believe it's a Hilton, I can't remember. And that's going to become not only a place for them to bring in prospective business people, but also they're using it as part of the training for the hospitality program at the U of N. And so I'm not saying we have to have those exact things, but what became clear to me walking away from there is if you don't have some infrastructure, you're not going to it's not attractive to people that have to drive up there and then come down here to find the things they want. And that to me is a hurdle, and I don't know the answer. That's why it's Jim's problem now. But I do think we need to have some vision there about how that all starts to play together. I don't know if you had anything to add, but.
yeah, the nice thing about the trip to Lincoln was, in some ways, we're not as far behind them as I assumed we would be.
Yes.
Wow.
Which was kind of reassuring. If you're familiar with that campus at Lincoln at all, the state fair used to be right to the north of the campus, and then in the last 10 years, they moved it to Grand Island, I think Grand Island, and just dozed the whole fairgrounds, and that's where they're building the research park now. So the whole thing is less than 10 years old. The one challenge that we have at the Discovery District that's unusual is that our university campus is an hour away. And so a lot of the back and forth you want to have with professors and students and so forth is trickier because they're, for the large part, not in Sioux Falls, they're an hour away on a campus, but we can figure that out.
There's obviously a lot of people, a lot of voices that are involved with and impacted by the work of the Board of Regents. Each of you talk about the key partners that you work with and how you all work together.
Well, just in my brief time there, my key partners are the university presidents. I've made a very concerted effort to get to know each one of them. I haven't been to all the campuses yet, but I will be shortly to do at least an in-person visit, so I'm familiar with it. So those are my key partners to start with. I think our next key group is legislators. I'll let Tony maybe talk about that. In my real life, I'm not going to be a lobbyist for the Board of Regents during the legislative session because I need to do my real job so I get paid. The $75 I get from the Regent meeting is pretty good, but I need a little bit more than that. But those are just off the top of my head, 2 of my key partners. I think the Regental staff, obviously, that's a given, as a key stakeholder. But.
And Tony, how do you make all those voices work together?
Oh, I don't know. You just do. But yeah, those are the main stakeholders. I'm on the board of the SDSU Research Park. We have a meeting this afternoon, in fact. And so you have the business communities in each town, the student leadership, the legislators, as Tim mentioned, and that's been kind of a new emphasis. I would say the last few years the Regents had gotten a little weak on their legislative engagement, and Dr. Maher coming in has reemphasized that, and then Tim and I and Regent Partridge, who were appointed in April, all have a lot of experience with the legislature ourselves, and so that's hopefully going to be a net positive. We'll see.
Yeah.
But could work against us.
I do think one group that surprised me as a stakeholder, and Tony brought it up, is the student regent. I have found that to be extremely powerful, having that voice on the regents. we have an outstanding young man on there, Brock. It's been very helpful to have kind of us sit around the table and philosophize about how much we know, what's going on the campus, blah, blah, blah. And then for him to say, well, okay, that's great, guys, but here's, kind of the day-to-day, what the reality is that's happening on my campus. He goes to SCSU, but I'm sure it's similar on all the campuses. But to have that voice to kind of bring some clarity to our deep philosophical discussions has been, I think, it's been very powerful for me, very helpful.
Yeah, the student region is the only member who's actually on campus every day.
Right.
So a lot of times he actually knows what's going on and the rest of us really don't.
That's fair.
It's encouraging for us all.
Yeah.
Before I ask my last question, we do have time to engage our audience. If there are any Rotarians who have a question, put your hand up. I'll give a call out, and I think Governor Dugard is going to.
Tony, you get this one.
Well, we'll see.
And if you'd be willing to stand.
I'm sitting beside Dave Owen, and he expressed some concern, which I share, and that is we want to be sure we understood you right when you said that Jim Abbott was good for nothing. And we want to see if we, no, seriously, the serious question I have is, there was some good discussion about recruitment, and I'm wondering what else the Board of Regents may have been seeing recently in terms of the attrition rate of freshmen. I know that's been a problem nationwide about we recruit a bunch of freshmen and a sizable fraction either drops out the first year or does not come back the second year. So I'm wondering what you may have seen or been doing about that.
And that's a very good question. I mean, it kind of goes back to the sales idea that the easiest customer to get is the one that you already have. And so when you look at enrollment, if you have a freshman who's already there, retaining that freshman into the sophomore year is easier than getting a new freshman. The good news is, and I would have to say I was pleasantly surprised by this, because back when I was on the Regents as a student, some of our schools, their freshman to sophomore retention rate was only 60, 65%. And you'd put a lot of money into it and it would move a point. And we had, I think it was our first meeting maybe, with Barry Dunn, and he came in and he'd improved the freshman retention rate at SDSU by 10% in 2 years, up into the, I think 75 maybe, which was just phenomenal to me. But he has done a very good job of focusing, goes back to this opportunity center concept again, but focusing on these high need students and figuring out what exactly it is that are the barriers to keeping them there. And one thing, I mean, I don't think people necessarily know that Barry is part Native American himself and grew up on the Rosebud Reservation, or near there, and brings a lot of personal experience to this topic. And then we had Sheila Gestring come in from USD and had made pretty similar gains down there. So the good news is actually, for the first time in the 18 years I've been paying attention to it, it seems like we've made up a lot of ground on that front.
No, I think that's right. And, great question too, Governor. I think, like Tony said, I was surprised that we are above the national average in retention at most of our universities. In fact, I believe all, but some aren't as high as SDSU right now. But obviously that's been a hyper focus. It's the leakage seems to be on the back end a little bit in that mid years, and I think that's going to be a new focus for them as well. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that that's where we're seeing some leakage that we didn't have before. So
you also have to balance. I mean, if you wanted to improve that number a lot, you would just stop taking anyone with an ACT below 22 or 24.
Right.
Then you'd have a 90% retention rate, but you're also kind of missing the point.
Right. Exactly.
And so
It's good perspective. Is there another question? It's easy.
David Owen already had his. He doesn't get it.
David Owen, South Dakota Chamber. I don't think you've suffered enough, so let me ask you. Post-secondary education has a number of opportunities. You represent the 4-year degree. Would you talk about the relationship with the other board that's now controlling our technical colleges? And also comment on this life experience, which I think has people going for a technical skill, needing to round out a 4-year degree and kind of mixing back and forth. So initial relationship, and then how do you see lifetime learning?
Go ahead.
I have to say that relationship has gotten a lot better. Back when I was the student regent, we would meet once a year with the Board of Ed, and Harvey Jewett and Glenna Faubourg would just yell at each other for an hour, and then we would go home. And we've kind of moved beyond that. We have a new Board of Technical Education, which Dana in the back is the chairman of, and that's been a good thing because the Board of Technical Education now is a board that is committed solely to those 4 institutions, as opposed to the old system where they were overseeing K-12 curriculum and teacher standards and all sorts of things. It was kind of a mishmash. We have also seen, as a consequence of that, I think a lot more productive relationship between the 2 boards and the continuing development, and I don't even know how many articulation agreements there are between universities and technical colleges, but it's hundreds probably, and at every meeting we have, we approve more of them. But that's what you want to get to the point. It works really well in healthcare. In healthcare, you can get a 2-year nursing degree, and then that can become a 4-year nursing degree, and then you can be a CRNA or a nurse practitioner. It's all kind of streamlined, and you move through the different institutions, and it's all set up very nicely. There really aren't any other academic areas that are like that, and so you have to kind of figure it out as you go. But for example, I know SDSU and Lake Area have done a lot of work on the agriculture field and making it easier to go from Lake Area into SDSU and come out with a 4-year degree, and it can be a good option for a lot of students. And the reverse needs to be true too. There might be some, again, this is retention. Sometimes you have a freshman who is there, and the best thing he should do is leave and go to the technical college. And that works against your statistic because now you haven't retained that kid. But it's still the best thing for that kid sometimes, and you need to be willing to do it.
Yeah, I'd only add, I knew Tony had a deeper understanding of that. I've not dealt with the board itself in my new role on the Regents. I do know that Dr. Maher and his counterpart over at the board for the VOTEC, or for the vocational schools, has a good working relationship, and I know we're in discussions with them about the West River Health Science Center as well currently. So I think Tony summed it up well, but I do think there's a good, positive working relationship there.
I love that, and I think that leads into my last question. I want to make sure that we do end right on time at 1 o'clock. I sensed an optimism in the way that you both answered or responded to that question. We've got 1 month left in 2021. What's on the horizon for 2022 with the Board of Regents?
Well, I'll go first. I don't know that we have a lot of grand vision plans for 2022, but you're talk about optimism, positive. I would say that since Tony and I and Jeff joined the board, the board has really gelled. I really have enjoyed the since April meetings we've had, and I really, you got that first month, that first couple of meetings, you don't really know each other, and after we've spent some time together, had a couple battles that we've gone through, I'm really optimistic about the makeup of the board currently. It's we work well together. We can have some knockdown, drag-out fights, which we've had, and we've had some really, really, really good things come out of that in the few months that we've all been together. So I am really excited about the board. I really am. I've enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would have, and I'm very optimistic about the cohesion of the board and the decisions, the really thoughtful, kind of common sense decisions that I think we're going to be able to make over the next year. I really am.
I love it. Tony, last words.
Well, I'd agree with that. And then one of the fun things about being on the Board of Regents is you get to visit each school at least once a year, generally more, and just see what's going on there and see these young people and what they're studying and what they're doing and the research that's happening and all the excitement and the energy. And it makes you feel good about the future of our state, I think. And
for sure.
We're going into a legislative session where it appears again that there are going to be a lot of opportunity to make some big decisions about where we want to invest, and I think we'll be part of that conversation, and that's exciting too. But
absolutely,
it's a fun job to have, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity.
Yep.
Well, speaking of fun, you've certainly made the topic today for our program fun, and I'm grateful to both of you for being here. Can you all help me thank these two gentlemen for their time?
Cindy, thank you. Tim, thank you. Can't imagine if you had 4 hours to prepare, but I appreciate you being ready at 3 and doing a great job. And Tony, thank you for making Armour proud. Great representation up here, and I can feel the energy and excited for what you're doing for our future generations. So thank you for the conversation. Looking ahead to next week, we're going to have a conversation at the Sioux Falls Airport. We're going to have the executive director here, as well as managing partner for Volair Aviation, to talk about all things Sioux Falls Airport. And looking forward to that conversation. And then once again, Rotary in the Know next Tuesday, the 7th. Get your RSVP in. And then the 20th, we'll have our holiday celebration. So bring your spouse. We'll have a good time and have some music. So with that, Rotary is adjourned. Have a great week. Thank you.